A 7-year-old girl sat in her classroom drawing what her teacher called monsters. Strange creatures with too many eyes. Animals with impossible colors. Beings that shouldn't exist. But when aliens intercepted those drawings through a routine Earth scan, their entire command center went silent. Because this child wasn't drawing monsters at all. She was sketching species the aliens had personally wiped out across 12 galaxies. Species that went extinct thousands of years before humans even existed. How did a human child on a backwater planet know what a Krell looked like? How did she capture the exact pattern of a Vorthian's bioluminescent scales? These weren't random doodles. These were perfect reconstructions of beings the aliens thought they'd erased from universal memory forever. But the truth behind this will shock you. Because what started as a simple art project became the most dangerous discovery in alien history. And it revealed 3 things that changed everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the universe. First, human children aren't just randomly creative. They're tapping into something the aliens call genetic echo memory. Second, the species this girl drew weren't just extinct. They were deliberately exterminated to hide a massive secret. And third, her drawings proved that humans are connected to these lost species in a way that terrifies every alien empire in the known universe. This isn't science fiction. This is the story that nearly started an intergalactic war. The story of why humans suddenly became the most valuable and most hunted species in existence. And the story of how a box of crayons almost exposed the biggest cover-up in cosmic history. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Meet Sarah Chen. 7 years old. Lives in Portland, Oregon. Loves dinosaurs, hates broccoli, draws constantly. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had seen thousands of kid drawings in her 20-year career. Dragons, unicorns, robot dogs. Standard stuff. But Sarah's drawings were different. They had too much detail for a second grader. Too much anatomical consistency. Each creature appeared multiple times with the same features. Same number of limbs. Same eye placement. Same skin textures rendered in crayon with shocking accuracy. Mrs. Patterson mentioned it to Sarah's parents. They shrugged it off. She has a vivid imagination, her mom said. Maybe she's seen them in dreams. That's what they told themselves. That's what everyone tells themselves when kids do impossible things. Meanwhile, 300 light-years away, the collective was conducting routine surveillance. That's what they call it when they scan developing worlds for potential threats. Earth had been on their watch list for decades. Not because humans were dangerous yet, but because something about human DNA kept triggering their security algorithms. The collective is what happens when 12 alien species stop fighting each other and start ruling together. They share technology. They share resources. They share one unbreakable rule. Some knowledge must stay buried. Some species must stay extinct. Some truths can never surface. Their scanners sweep thousands of planets daily, looking for weapons development, looking for faster-than-light experimentation, looking for anything that might challenge their power. Most scans are boring. Primitive civilizations doing primitive things. But on March 14th, their Earth scanner flagged something unusual. A pattern match in visual data. Specifically, in children's artwork from 43 schools across 6 continents. The AI couldn't explain it. The pattern shouldn't exist in human culture. It shouldn't exist anywhere. A junior analyst named Krev pulled up the flagged images. His 3 hearts stopped simultaneously. He knew these creatures. Every citizen of the collective knew them. They were required learning in youth indoctrination. Enemies of peace, the history files called them. Threats to cosmic stability. They were the forgotten ones. The species the collective had systematically erased over the past 8,000 years. And human children were drawing them perfectly. Now here's where things get really interesting. Krev didn't report it immediately. That was his first mistake. Or maybe his first moment of actual curiosity in a career built on following orders. He dug deeper into the data. He tracked Sarah Chen specifically because she had the most drawings. 43 sketches in her school art folder alone. Each drawing was labeled. The flying fish people. The rock giants with singing stones. The rainbow wolves of the Crystal Mountains. Kid names for things that didn't have kid names. Because these weren't fantasy creatures. They were real species with real names in the collective's classified archives. The flying fish people were the Krell, an aquatic species from Sector 9. They could breathe in water and air. They had wings that worked in both environments. The collective exterminated them 6,000 years ago because they refused to surrender their ocean worlds. Official reason: incompatible with collective integration protocols. Real reason: their planets had mineral deposits the collective wanted. Sarah drew them with perfect wing structure. 6 fins. 3 primary, 3 secondary. Bioluminescent spots in specific patterns used for communication. Details that weren't in any human database. Details that existed only in restricted collective military records. The rock giants with singing stones were the Thorum, silicon-based life forms from high-gravity worlds. They didn't speak with mouths. They vibrated crystalline organs to create sound. Humans had never encountered silicon-based life. Human scientists still debated whether it was even possible. Sarah drew them with their crystal organs visible through translucent skin. She used specific colors for different organs. Blue for respiration. Green for nutrition processing. Red for reproduction. She couldn't have known this. The Thorum went extinct 7,000 years ago. Their entire species was vaporized when the collective collapsed their home star to prevent them from spreading. The rainbow wolves were Vorthians, predatory pack hunters from frozen methane worlds. Their fur could shift through 17 distinct colors based on emotional state and tactical need. Combat camouflage and psychological warfare in one evolutionary package. They almost defeated the collective in the Second Purge War. Almost. Sarah drew them mid-color shift. She showed the transition patterns. She captured the exact sequence. Blue to violet to red when hunting. Green to yellow to white when protecting young. These were military intelligence details, classified at the highest levels. Krev checked other children's drawings. A boy in Tokyo drew the singing stones with sound wave patterns radiating from them. A girl in Mumbai sketched Krell in mid-flight with anatomically correct wing positions. A child in Cairo rendered a Vorthian pack in perfect tactical formation. None of these kids had internet access to classified alien databases. Most didn't even have smartphones yet. They weren't sharing drawings online. They weren't copying each other. They were all accessing the same impossible source. Krev realized something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't imagination. This was memory. Genetic memory. Somehow, human DNA contained information about species that died millennia before humans evolved. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. Krev did something unprecedented. He hacked into the collective's deep archive. The files even most council members couldn't access. The real history, not the cleaned-up version taught in schools. What he found changed everything. The species the collective exterminated weren't random enemies. They were connected. All of them had one thing in common. They carried something called the seed code in their DNA. A genetic marker that shouldn't exist naturally. A marker that looked artificial. Designed. The seed code was controversial. Some scientists said it was proof of ancient genetic engineering. That some precursor race had seeded life across the galaxy billions of years ago. Others called it statistical noise. Pattern seeking in random genetic data. But the collective's founders knew the truth. The seed code was real. And it was a weapon. Not a weapon that killed. A weapon that remembered. Species with the seed code could access ancestral memories. Not just from their own species. From other seed code species. It was like a biological internet connecting all seeded life across space and time. The Krell could remember the Thorum. The Vorthians could access Krell knowledge. Information flowed through DNA across generations and species barriers. The collective's founders had the seed code too. That's how they discovered it. They remembered species that died long before they evolved. They used this knowledge to advance rapidly, to build their empire. But then they made a choice. They decided to keep the seed code for themselves. They systematically hunted every other seed code species they could find. 8,000 years of genocide disguised as territorial expansion. Thousands of species erased. Trillions of beings killed. Official records called it the unification period, a time of bringing peace to chaos. In reality, it was the greatest act of biological theft in galactic history. The collective wanted a monopoly on ancestral knowledge. They wanted to be the only ones who could remember, the only ones who could access the library of genetic information spanning billions of years. And they succeeded. For 8,000 years, no seed code species emerged to challenge them. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd erased every trace. Until human children started drawing pictures. Krev cross-referenced human genetic data, publicly available sequences from the Human Genome Project. He ran them through the seed code detection algorithm, the one that hadn't flagged anything in 700 years. It flagged immediately. Humans had the seed code, not just traces, not degraded fragments. Full, active, highly expressed seed code. More active than any species the collective had ever encountered. More active than the collective's own degraded versions. Humans weren't just another intelligent species. They were seed code carriers. And their children were beginning to access the memories. Beginning to remember species they'd never met. Species that died long before Earth formed. This brought us to the most shocking discovery of all. Krev found a restricted file buried in the deep archive. A file with a single designation, Earth Contingency Protocol. The collective had known about humans for 12,000 years. Long before humans were humans. They'd been monitoring our planet since our ancestors were still small mammals hiding from dinosaurs. They'd been watching our evolution. Waiting. Because Earth wasn't a random planet. It was a designated seed world. One of 12 planets marked by the precursor race as genetic repositories. Backup drives for the seed code network. Places where the code would eventually express in evolved species. The collective had destroyed 9 of the 12 seed worlds. Cracked them open. Sterilized them. Made sure no seed code species would ever emerge from them. But Earth was different. Earth was protected by something they called the exclusion field. Any ship that approached Earth with hostile intent experienced catastrophic system failures. The collective lost 47 warships trying to destroy Earth over the past 10,000 years. They couldn't explain it. No visible defenses. No energy signatures. Just ships dying when they got too close with weapons armed. So they waited. They watched. They hoped humans would evolve without activating the seed code. Some species carried the code dormant for millions of years. Maybe humans would too. But they didn't. Human children were activating it early. By age 5, sometimes younger. Their brains were developing in ways that accessed the genetic memory library. And they were doing it naturally, without training, without even understanding what they were doing. Sarah Chen wasn't special. She was normal. All human children had this ability. They just interpreted it differently. Some saw the memories as dreams. Some as imaginary friends. Some as drawing inspiration. But they were all accessing the same database. All remembering the same extinct species. The Earth Contingency Protocol had one directive. If seed code activation reaches 15% of juvenile human population, initiate sterilization protocol regardless of exclusion field. Krev checked current numbers. 43 schools flagged. Estimated 2,000 children actively accessing memories. Human juvenile population, 2 billion. They were at 0.0001%. Far from 15%. But the rate was accelerating. 5 years ago, they tracked only 12 cases globally. 3 years ago, 150. Last year, 600. This year, 2,000 and climbing. The growth was exponential. At current rates, they'd hit 15% in 43 years. Maybe sooner if access spread through social learning. Kids teaching kids. Memories shared and reinforced. The collective council had a meeting scheduled. 3 days away. Krev knew what they'd decide. They'd authorize the sterilization protocol. They'd find a way through the exclusion field. Or they'd use biological weapons. Engineer a plague that targeted seed code carriers specifically. They'd done it before. 9 worlds. Countless species. What was one more? Krev made a choice. He leaked everything. Every file. Every classified record. He broadcast it across all collective networks. He sent copies to resistance groups, to independent colonies, to anyone who might care that their government had committed 8,000 years of genocide. So what does all this mean for us today? The leak triggered the biggest political crisis in collective history. Council members denied everything, called it fabricated propaganda, enemy disinformation, but the files were verified. The encryption was genuine. The evidence was overwhelming. 12 member species of the collective. 8 of them had their own seed code species that were exterminated. They didn't know. Their governments had hidden it, rewritten their histories, told them their ascension was natural, earned. It was stolen, built on genocide. Every technological advantage, every cultural achievement, every bit of ancestral wisdom they claimed as their own. It came from murdered species, from stolen memories. The collective fractured. 4 species withdrew their membership immediately. 2 more demanded full archive access, public trials, accountability. The remaining 6 tried to hold it together, claimed the exterminations were necessary, that seed code species were too dangerous, too unpredictable. But the galaxy wasn't buying it anymore. For humans, this changed everything. We went from insignificant backwater species to the most valuable genetic resource in known space. Every surviving seed code species wanted to contact us, study us, learn how our code was so active, so powerful. But not everyone had good intentions. Pirates started kidnapping human children. Black market geneticists paid millions for human DNA samples. Some species wanted to cure their degraded seed code. Others wanted to weaponize ours. Earth became a target, not for destruction anymore, for exploitation. The exclusion field still worked, still protected us from direct military assault. But it didn't stop infiltration, didn't stop abductions, didn't stop the dozens of alien species now trying to make contact secretly. Governments had a choice: deny everything, keep humans ignorant, or tell the truth. Prepare humanity for a galaxy that suddenly cared about us for the worst possible reasons. Some countries went public, released limited information. We are not alone. We have unique genetic traits. We are valuable. Careful words, curated truth. Other countries suppressed it, called it conspiracy theory, disinformation. They arrested people who shared the leaked files, scrubbed mentions from the internet, kept their populations blind. But Sarah Chen kept drawing. So did thousands of other children. And as they grew older, their memories became clearer, more detailed. They started recognizing patterns, understanding what they were accessing. A movement formed. The Rememberers, they called themselves. Teenagers and young adults who'd been accessing seed code memories their whole lives. They compared notes, shared drawings, reconstructed entire cultures from genetic fragments. They rebuilt the Krell language, rediscovered Thorum engineering principles, mapped Vorthian hunting strategies. They weren't just remembering dead species anymore. They were resurrecting their knowledge. And that knowledge was advanced. More advanced than human science. More advanced than collective technology in some areas. Because the seed code network contained billions of years of accumulated wisdom from thousands of species. Humans didn't need to invent faster-than-light travel. We just needed to remember how the Krell did it. We didn't need to crack silicon-based computing. We just needed to access Thorum memory crystallography. The genetic library was opening, and humanity was about to skip 10,000 years of technological development. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Krev's leak contained one more file, the one he almost didn't include, the one that scared him more than anything else. It was a message, left by the precursor race, the ones who created the seed code billions of years ago. It was buried in the genetic sequence itself, encoded in the junk DNA that scientists always said served no purpose. Took researchers 3 months to decode it, to translate base pair sequences into actual language. When they finally did, the message was simple, terrifying. We are gone, but our children remain. The seed code is not inheritance. It is preparation. When enough remember, when enough awaken, when enough understand, the harvest begins. Nobody knows what the harvest means. The precursor race left no other information, no context, no instructions, just that one cryptic warning buried in the DNA of species scattered across galaxies. Some think it's a test, that when enough seed code species evolve and connect, something activates. Maybe a beacon, maybe a gateway, maybe the precursor race returns. Others think it's a weapon, that the precursors engineered the seed code to create a biological army. Sleeper agents in DNA form, waiting across billions of years to wake up and serve some ancient purpose. The collective thinks it's an extinction event. That harvest means exactly what it sounds like. The precursors seeded the galaxy with life. Now they're coming back to collect. Nobody knows, but everyone's worried. Because the 15% threshold? The number that triggered the Earth contingency protocol? It appeared in the precursor message too, mentioned as minimum viable awakening population. Humanity's approaching it, fast. And when we hit it, something's going to happen. Something the precursors planned billions of years ago. Something they thought was worth encoding into the fundamental building blocks of life itself. Sarah Chen is 14 now, still drawing. But her pictures aren't monsters anymore. They're technical diagrams, blueprints, designs for things humans never invented. Things she remembers from species that died before Earth cooled. She's building something in her parents' garage. Won't say what, just smiles when people ask. Says she'll show everyone when it's ready. Says they're almost ready to remember everything. If this opened your eyes, you need to hear what happened next. Let's recap what we've learned. Human children are accessing genetic memories from extinct alien species through something called the seed code. The collective, a 12-species alien empire, spent 8,000 years exterminating every seed code species to monopolize ancestral knowledge. Earth is one of 3 remaining seed worlds, protected by a mysterious exclusion field that kills hostile ships. And humanity is approaching a 15% awakening threshold that might trigger something called the harvest, planned by precursor beings billions of years ago. This isn't where the story ends. It's where it gets dangerous. Because the collective might be fractured, but they're not defeated. 6 species still support the old guard. Still believe seed code carriers are too dangerous to live. They're developing new weapons, new strategies, new ways to bypass the exclusion field. And they're running out of time. Every month, more human children activate their memories. Every month, humanity gets closer to that 15% threshold. Every month, the galaxy holds its breath wondering what happens when we cross it. If you want to understand where this is heading, you need to watch what happens when the collective makes their move. I'll link that video in the description. It's called The Battle for Earth's Genetic Future, and it reveals the 3 ways aliens are trying to infiltrate our planet right now, the methods they're using, the humans who are helping them, and the remembers fighting back with technology pulled from extinct species memories. But I want to hear from you first. Drop a comment and tell me. If you could access genetic memories from any extinct species, which would you choose? The Krell with their underwater civilizations? The Thorum with their crystal technology? The Vorthians with their color-shifting combat abilities? Or maybe one of the thousands of other species the collective erased? More importantly, do you think the 15% threshold is real? Should we be rushing toward it to unlock the harvest? Or should we be doing everything possible to stay below it? This community is full of brilliant minds. I want to know what you think happens when enough humans remember. When enough of us access the genetic library. Do we ascend? Do we die? Or do we become something the precursors planned all along? Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated on humanity's genetic awakening. Smash the like button if this story made you see humans differently. And turn on notifications because the next video drops in 3 days, and you don't want to miss what happened when Sarah Chen finished building her garage project. The future is being drawn in classrooms right now. The question is whether we'll remember it in time. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep drawing those monsters.